The result of finishing in 6th place for Max Verstappen at the Bahrain Grand Prix is not a source of pride for either the team or the driver, especially after a disastrous qualifying session on Saturday. The four-time world champion now understands better than anyone that the car has serious flaws, and that, under the current conditions, he is not in contention for the Drivers' Championship. This situation may, however, prompt a change, because only by moving to a different project will Max be able to help the engineers resolve the problems more quickly. Max's race was marked by intense emotion. At one point, he left the second pit stop in last position, but the appearance of the safety car, which emerged at exactly the necessary moment, allowed him to remain on track. This decision enabled him to overtake Gasly on the final lap, thereby securing points by finishing in 6th, although the result was far from the performance expected. Throughout the race, Max did not spare any criticism regarding the brakes, especially when Hamilton passed him as soon as the driver began to lose grip with the hard compound tires. At one point, the four-time world champion declared that he could no longer brake, describing the situation as absurd. On another occasion, he stated that everything was overheating, possibly referring both to the machine and to the discomfort he felt in the car. The day became even more complicated when Max was forced to make a second pit stop prematurely, which dropped him to last position on the grid. Although the conditions provided by the safety car allowed him to gain several positions effortlessly, being stuck behind an Alpine and a Haas due to braking and stability issues represents a challenge that the team cannot simply ignore. After the race, Verstappen's statement was brief and direct. "Whew, oh my God, that was difficult, Jesus." The braking difficulties had already been widely discussed during the qualifying session, and numerous statements by Helmut Marko reinforced the urgency of solving this problem so that Max could achieve the desired performance. However, the fact that Tsunoda remained close to Verstappen in both qualifying and the race shows that the Red Bull 21 is indeed a deficient car. And, if the problems are not corrected in the upcoming races, the team may well be relegated to the middle of the pack. Other factors also need improvement, such as the slow pit stops, which further hinder Max's already minimal chances of contending for the lead. It is important to note that the four-time world champion has already given up any hope of competing at the front anytime soon. Although Max has demonstrated his ability to extract much more from the car than it appears to offer, certain circumstances are simply beyond his control. For example, 2 slow pit stops that cost him approximately 10 seconds of stationary time are not something to be proud of, even if part of the blame can be attributed to the flashing lights that signaled his return to the track. We hope this unfortunate scenario does not repeat itself, but seeing Verstappen follow an Alpine for so long and being overtaken cleanly by a driver, Antonelli, of 18 years of age, is not a good sign for Red Bull. There is no doubt that the car requires extensive improvement. Whether we like it or not, Max cannot always turn it into a pole-winning machine or simply push it to the limit. The abrasiveness of the asphalt has proven to be a considerable challenge for the driver, and the most regrettable fact is that he ended up setting an example for the rest of the pack, demonstrating that the hard compound tire simply does not perform as it should. After switching from the soft tires to the hard ones, Max faced great difficulty keeping them within the operating window, a fact that led him to send sharp criticisms to the team. Besides complaining about the brakes, he stated that the car does not take corners properly, which is especially worrisome when decelerating from 300 to 100 kilometers per hour in just a few meters as he approached the first turn. This scenario opens a Pandora's box of questions. Will Max stay with the team if this situation persists? The four-time world champion had a contractual clause, as admitted by Marko and another team member, and if Red Bull continues in this direction, there is no doubt that Verstappen will closely watch how the other teams develop. It was recently shown that Mercedes occupies the position of the second fastest team in 2025, and only a few seasons ago, it was ridiculed for having a completely flawed concept. Conversations between Max and Mercedes, as well as with Aston Martin, have already taken place in the past, indicating that the four-time world champion keeps his options open. Before the race, when asked about his chances for the 2025 championship, the driver made it clear that, at the moment, McLaren did not figure as his rival, stating that his participation in that championship was limited to the contest itself. He added that he did not see himself as a candidate for the title in 2025, considering the difference with McLaren, since he had mentioned during the winter tests that this difference was half a second, which was later confirmed. When analyzing the season as a whole, Max understands that the team hardly ever had a real chance. If the opponents make mistakes, as occurred during the qualifying session at Suzuka, there is a possibility of being ahead on that same track. But overtaking becomes unfeasible, even if that is not always the case. Having an acute problem with the car is already complicated, but seeing Verstappen's spirit being crushed in such a short span is something excessive, even by Red Bull standard. Yes, the team finally managed to get its second driver to score points, and it was the first race since Las Vegas in 2024 in which both drivers finished in the points zone. But the way this was achieved is unacceptable. Analyzing the natural development of the race, even if Max had ended in 6th place, he would have signed that result with both hands, since he left the pits in last position, and, thanks to the safety car and the novelty of the new tires, managed to gain all those positions. Otherwise, he risked being overtaken by the second Alpine of Doohan. Even in these times of precarious development for Red Bull, strategy proves to be the crucial factor. But this situation cannot be the rule, as evidenced at the Bahrain Grand Prix, if the aim is to keep a world champion satisfied. This is the moment to reflect, because the Austrian team lost ground due to internal power struggles that have plagued it recently. The departure of key personnel is definitely hindering progress, as currently only Aston Martin shows no regression in its rate of development. Every weekend a new problem emerges with Red Bull 21, and achieving the pole position at Suzuka, only to fall to 7th place on Saturday at Bahrain, just 1 week later, is unacceptable. Being stuck behind a Haas and an Alpine for most of the race is not something to be proud of. That said, Max will certainly have many points to make to the engineers and the team executives in the coming moments. The big question is, will he remain true to his principles and push his limits to contribute to rebuilding this team? Or will he choose to join some of Red Bull's rivals? Unfortunately for Max, he cannot fully benefit from the extreme strength of McLaren or from the fierce battle for points, because in the current scenario, he does not even command the third fastest car in the pack. At the moment, both Mercedes and Ferrari are demonstrating a performance superior to that of Red Bull 21. And if it were not for the situation provided by the safety car, it is likely that Max would not even have finished in the points zone. Therefore, it is necessary to ask, is a transfer for Verstappen a concrete possibility given the new regulation? When delving deeper into this debate, Brundle from Sky F1 stated that if Max Verstappen were to enter the market, he would be quite worried about George, since he is evidently the man chosen to take on future responsibilities. But there are many uncertainties in this matter. With all this in view, what are your impressions of Max's season so far? And more importantly, do you believe that the problems faced in Bahrain will persist in the upcoming races? Share your opinion in the comments, and as you do not forget to click on the video that is appearing on your screen right now.